What is the social contract? What really defines a social contract for me is society. The social contract is a person's right to be in society, among others, and to be able to participate. If you follow the political and moral norms set forth by the dominant culture, which traditionally are upper class to upper middle class, white males, then you seem to be okay. However, if the contract is broken and you somehow become on the fringe on the outside, you essentially become a nobody. You become the unspoken narrative. And for certain groups, the social contract just doesn't apply to them. For example, in one of our readings, Decent and Street Families, the author explains how there are two types of families, decent and street. Decent families are the families that want to get out of their circumstances if they live in a predominantly poverty-stricken neighborhood, and they want to get an education and they want to make it matter that they are there. However, the street family is the kind that don't depend on society to take care of them. They depend on themselves. And unlike decent families, they often show a lack of consideration for other people and have a rather superficial sense of family and community. However, the decent families try to live within this social contract by living with not being involved in drugs, keeping their children inside during the day. Even though you keep your children away from it, you're still in this stereotype of you live in this kind of neighborhood, and it exists everywhere. If you have a certain name of a place that you live, people automatically judge you for it. For example, if you're from Boston and you have an accent, it can immediately be picked up by someone and immediately you're judged. Or if you live from New York City, they expect you to to be a thug, essentially. And with the decent family, they are living in an urban setting surrounded by crime, drugs, and the constant threat of violence. A street family that lives by their own quote-unquote code of the street. Generally, they tend to lack a decent education, but there are some individuals that are incredibly intelligent. They lack an outlook that allows them to see that there are better things that go beyond their circumstances. Because of this lack of self-awareness, they take pride in living the quote-unquote thug life. They challenge the social contract, and they are challenged by the social contract. Residents in communities and neighborhoods, no matter where they are products of their environments. It is almost an expectation. It's a stereotype in a way. And because even if there are decent people and the decent families that do value education, they want their kids to do good, they want them to go to college, make a living, be able to have a steady paying job for the rest of their lives, they're still stereotyped into, oh, you live in the city. That doesn't really matter to me. And here is a visual of the social contract. Here's the dominant culture in the middle, and these are where generally urban families remain in. They're on the fringe of it, so they're not really considered for it. And Susan Bickford, in her articles, she has stated that she makes a point where why would someone want to, say, follow the police if they're not being considered in the decisions that control them, essentially? Like, why would they want to help the police in so-called, snitching or informants, or to try and follow the laws and be respectful in that if they're not given respect? It's the common human emotion. You give respect to me, I will give respect to you, in a way. And she does bring up a point of this unspoken narrative where how can we truly have a democratic society if there are blacks that are being ignored, and Latinos, or specifically other people that are other than the dominant culture, which is predominantly white traditionally? How can they be considered for anything if they're not even asked? How can we know their narrative if they're not told? So the social contract to me has many flaws, but however, it keeps our society in order. And the society's way of constructing itself is to have this social contract. But what's more important is that I see that after learning this, that these families, because and the people that live on the streets and live in gangs like we saw in Bastards of the Party, it's not that they're bad people, or at least in my eyes they're not. They're trying to make order out of the chaos that they live in. It doesn't make it like, I don't exactly condone violence. I don't condone the murder that goes on in the disestablishment that they create. However, it is completely understandable, because if you have nothing to hold on to, if you have no construct, if you have no structure, you are constantly trying to create it yourself, and you're constantly trying to be a part of it. So it makes more sense to me that they would create the gangs and, use capital and use the juice, as they call it, to exude violence, because if not, then you die in these kind of situations, in these kind of environments. And I can't exactly speak from personal experience, but I can definitely understand from a logical perspective how, if you're trying to find order, you create it yourself. And I thought it was very eye-opening that even the members of the actual gang say that, it's not that we don't want to leave this life, and it's not even as if you can't, it's that we choose to, we want to, because they've been ingrained in them since childhood, since birth, since before they were even born in their families, that they have been bred to believe that this is all you are. You can't be anything else. This is what you're going to live by. These are your examples. These are your models. And eventually they internalize it themselves, so even if they can get out of the gangs, they essentially can never leave that kind of life. They can never leave that kind of mindset. And that, to me, is what the social contract is. Thank you.